Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. We're going to stick to it today because we got 30 minutes to get in as much content as humanly possible. We're going to be talking about a couple of things that got us a little fired up earlier, and we wanted to bring them to the podcast today. Every week, we're trying to bring as much value as we possibly can, talking about sales and leadership and, of course, JKR Windows. And in the studio, I got my partner with me today, Jeffrey Fieldstead.
What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
Excited to be here.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about sales, windows, and some of these other things that keep popping up that get people excited about going to make commissions for one reason or the other that we're still trying to figure out.
Yep.
One of them is fiber, new thing that's came up over the last couple of months.
Yep.
And then what about this? What was the acronym?
IULs, solar
IULs.
guys. Yeah, solar guys that are not selling solar anymore and going to sell IULs, which stands for Indexed Universal Life Insurance.
Indexed Universal Life Insurance.
Yep.
Okay.
Crazy.
So we just so happen to have a life insurance expert in the room that knows all about this indexed universal life insurance because this really is the first time that I'm hearing about it.
Yeah.
And it's another way to make money.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got into sales, I had people approaching me from all of a sudden. It's like the veil had been lifted, and there's opportunities for sales all over the place, in roofing and solar and pest control, in alarm sales. I'd even considered going back to selling blenders. My family for generations has been selling blenders at home shows and military shows and in Costco's.
Yeah,
and
what's a tagline? Just soups, juices, and ice cream. Is that what it is?
Just juice, soup, and ice. Juice, soup, and ice cream. You keep it simple. That's like the keep it simple phrase for selling Vitamixes.
Yeah.
Juice, soup, and ice cream. Don't need to complicate it. It's duplicatable. It's predictable. This is what people get excited about. And I was considering going to do, because I had so many family members, maybe I'll go back and do some Vitamix sales.
Sell juice, soup, and ice cream.
Ultimately, it ended up being windows for me because it was something that I could get fired up about and that I had experience in because I'd been in the construction industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood the value there. It wasn't just about the money. It's never been about the money for me. It was about adding real value.
I'm glad you said that, dude.
It's not like that for everybody, though.
Yeah, well, I think it is for the right people. You know, I think that we were on a call earlier today, and I just said, you know, if it's the money first that excites somebody, they're the wrong person. The people we want to work with are people that have good character and good values, and they care what they're selling across the kitchen table to the customer, right? They care about the product that they're representing, the service that they're providing, and they care about the end result. And that's more important to them than the amount of money they're going to make. Right? Making money and financial success is important, right? I think that's a measuring stick. But character traits and values are more important than the amount of money you're going to make, right? It's not that it's not important. It's just more important, the character traits. And I think if you align yourself with the right kind of people, then you can build a career, do something you're proud of, and do something you can believe in and you can stand behind. And I think that's where real success and fulfillment and joy comes from.
Exactly. For some people, that's everything. Because there was no getting me excited about selling pest control.
Yeah.
Or solar. I sat down, it only took me one time. And it may have been the guy. It turns out it wasn't, because after years and years of exploring it in other ways and people wanting to partner with JKR Windows, I could never do solar.
Yeah. Well, I think it came up today, and you know, it was mentioned, what do you think about guys that are leaving solar to go sell IULs? And my response was, you know, when you're selling solar, there's so many different variables. You know, what size do they have a battery? What size are the batteries? What, you know, how many watts are the panels? How many panels? Do they get shade? Where's the sun coming from? What What area do they live in? There's all these variables, and whether or not it's actually going to make sense for this customer, and it's confusing, and it's unpredictable, and there's huge commissions in it. And there's a lot of good dudes that have sold solar and been successful, and there are definitely people that do it right, but a large percentage of people, in my opinion, that have sold solar have made a lot of money doing it because they understood the complexities and knew that most people didn't understand that, and they took advantage of the situation and weren't honest and didn't have and I actually think that's why the industry has been getting crushed lately. And so when the question was asked, what do you think about these guys going from selling solar to IULs? And it's like, it's the same thing.
I think they're perfect for it.
Yeah.
They're perfect. And this is like, it's almost like a promotion for all those guys that don't give a shit about the fulfillment and feeling good about what they sell. It's all about the commissions.
Yeah.
The next thing for you is IULs.
Yeah.
You can go sell IULs because it's a high commission.
Yep.
Is that why?
It's high commissions. It's a very complicated product. And it's because it's complicated, a lot of customers don't make sense. They have all these theoretical and philosophical advantages, whether it's taxes and all this kind of stuff. And then it's also a product that, like solar, where a customer is going to realize 12 months from now or 18 months from now whether or not it did actually replace their electricity bill. In IUL, it's 20, 30, 40 years down the road until they realize that they've been taken advantage of. And so it's a very similar situation, but somebody who really doesn't care about the customer or care. It's all philosophical, because if you do the math, it just doesn't make sense.
Now that I'm thinking about it, there's somebody that told me about, well, I think we're talking about the same thing. And it sounded like maybe he had been recently convinced that this was right for him to invest the profits of his company in life insurance products.
Scary. Dumbest decision anybody could ever make. Anybody listen to this, please do not buy an IUL, seriously, let alone sell one.
Yeah. I mean, that is just interesting, because we're just talking about this kid that we've been trying to recruit to come to JKR Windows. And turns out he went to do something else for a little while with another couple of guys that we know. And then this new shiny object popped up. It's IULs. And somebody's making great commissions. And he's like, okay, yeah, I want to make great commissions.
Yeah.
Doesn't it ever dawn on anybody that you should ask questions and dig deep into what product it is that you're offering to see if it makes sense and adds value?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it does. But at the same time, it's like there's these things in the industry. And like I said, I think there's a lot of good dudes that sell solar. There's a lot of good dudes that sell IULs, and maybe they justify for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, there's all these things that are kind of cyclical in the market, that they're going up and down and up and down. And I think that's the reason why, is because a lot of times people start selling a product, and they realize after they've been selling it for a while, and they go, maybe this doesn't align with my morals and ethics and my values. And so maybe I want to go do something else. Well, the problem that creates is not only does it create the cycles in the marketplace or in the economy of that product, but it also starts to create cycles in somebody's career. And you notice that they're the kind of person that maybe does something for 2 or 3 years, and then they justify why it's okay to do that in something else. Maybe they go sell fiber, which most people that sell fiber right now, they know that it's not going to last forever. They know it's a temporary thing, but yet they still go do it. Why? Because most of those guys that are selling fiber came from selling solar. And they knew that wasn't a forever thing too. And most of the guys that are selling solar went from selling alarms. And so you start seeing this common thread. Or pest control, right? So you start seeing this common thread of bouncing from one thing to another thing to another thing. And that is, I think, personally, do I really believe in the product that I'm selling? Do I really believe in what I'm sitting across the kitchen table? Is the customer that I'm helping and serving, are they really getting value from what I'm offering? And I believe in financial services. I was successful there because I knew it. It wasn't even a belief, it was a fact. I knew that if I was sitting down with somebody, I was offering value. There was no way for me not to offer value, because I refused to offer a product or a service that wasn't good for them, something that I wouldn't only own myself, but something that I wouldn't offer to my parents or my siblings or somebody that I really loved and cared about.
Yeah, and you can't really say the same thing about these guys selling IULs, because most of them don't understand it well enough, and they certainly aren't going to buy it for themselves.
Right.
And what's interesting is that if they are selling it to their family, it's a pretty good indicator to me that either one, their morals and ethics are just really screwed up, or they just really don't understand it.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to make a check off their family.
And I think most of the time it's they really don't understand it. It's they don't know what they don't know. And honestly, dude, I think that's a great thing about windows, right? It's crazy because when you first started selling windows, dude, I was just like, windows? Like, of course, everybody has them, but it's like glass you see through. Like, really, I mean, what, you know?
Oh, I thought the same thing when I first learned about windows.
Right? Then you start learning about the product, and you start learning about the benefit, and you start learning about where a customer can gain value. And you start going, dang. And I remember some of the questions I would ask is like, oh, are there government subsidies? And you're like, oh, no. And it's like, well, it was solar. They need them for it to make sense, like remotely make sense. And where you look at a product like Windows and you think like, man, you could really feel good. We were talking about this the other day. Like, what can you do? Over window somebody? Can you sell somebody too many windows? You know, like, no. Like, you really, you sit down with a customer, and if they decide they want to replace windows in their home, there's really nothing you can do wrong.
When you're using a good product.
Yep.
We do know companies that sell bottom of the barrel, and they sell it for a high price point.
Yep.
And they're just in it for the volume game. They've kind of made a hybrid with the window game just to make money.
Yep.
But, yeah, when you're involved with a company who cares and they're adding value and they're offering a great product and they're backing it up with a great guarantee and a warranty, you can't do anything that doesn't make sense for that customer.
Right.
So we've made this thing dummy-proof where we can bring somebody in from a background like working at a grocery store. We got a guy the other day I was hearing, you know, when I used to work at Smith's. He was using an example from when he used to work at the grocery store. And now the guy made like $6,000 last week.
Yep.
And it used to take him 2 months to make that much.
Yeah.
And we can take somebody from any background that aligns morally and ethically, and they're excited about something that actually offers value to a customer. And they can't get this thing wrong.
Right.
And they know that every single time they show up to a doorstep, that this is right for that customer.
Yep.
100% of the time.
And it's immediate. Like, it's an immediate response, right? A customer has new windows on their home, it's immediate. I mean, it looks beautiful. It's quiet in the home. They're immediately noticing the benefit of what the rep did for them, you know? And the customers are saying it immediately. Like, we had someone say the other day, I never even realized that noise that was always happening, I never even thought about that windows would get rid of that noise.
Yeah. It was a compressor.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was an air compressor, yeah.
It kicks on every night.
Yeah.
I tell my husband it drives me nuts, and it kicked on 3 or 4 times last night, and I could barely hear it.
Yep.
I didn't realize it was the windows that were allowing all that noise in.
Yep. And how a simple solution, like just replacing those windows, and how much somebody notices it, a value of a product that it was never sold for that value. It was sold for a totally different reason, but yet there was so much value in it that they purchased it for one reason and they got that value, but they also got all this additional value outside of that.
Yeah.
And I think any of these products, whether it's an IUL, solar, fiber, pest control, I mean, that just doesn't happen. That's why there's usually this hard pressure sales pitch.
And why the cancellations are so freaking high.
Yes.
Double digits. We're talking like 50, 60%.
Yep.
In most of those industries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even like IULs. You look at IULs, probably in the first year, maybe it's 70 or 80% of people keep those. Maybe the first 3 years because of the way they work, there's huge surrender charges in them. But after 5 years or so, I'll bet it's maybe 30% people keep that product.
70% cancellation versus, I don't know, I've had my term life insurance policies for, one of them I've had for 13 years.
Yeah.
I'll keep it forever. The thing's going to expire in another 12 years.
Yeah. Then you don't need it. You're done. Risk is gone. Yeah, it makes sense. And it's same thing with these. Like, you install Windows, you got the value from it. It's like lifetime warranty. Going to take care of you forever. It'll be the last window you ever need. Right?
Yep. That's real value. That's what got me excited about replacement windows coming from the construction industry and being a mechanic. It was going to have to be something that I could get excited about and that I knew people were going to get excited about, and I was adding real value.
Yeah.
And that's, when I sold blenders, that's why over all of the things that I looked at, I was considering going and doing blenders when I was considering also windows, because I use that blender. I still got mine that I got back in 2000 and probably 2004, 2005. So it's lasted me 20 years, and I use the thing every week. And I like beat the shit out of that thing. I'll stack the whole thing up with ice, and you can hear the motor working overtime, and it's making my protein. I've made all kinds of different stuff. We grind our coffee beans in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I'm excited about, and I know other people are excited about, and I know that we're adding value.
Yeah.
And it's a small ticket item.
Yeah.
But Windows, on the other hand, I could get all of those same components, things that I could get excited about. I knew they were going to get excited about, and I could also make some great commissions.
Yeah. Well, I think that's anytime, we talk about sales and leadership constantly, like you talked about as you open here, and then selling something you believe in, selling something you can get great at, and you get these big rewards. But it's also attracting, if you're going to be successful at something, you got to be able to believe in it. And then if you're going to build something special, you got to be able to attract people that believe in it. And people, there's always like this feeling where if somebody's being real with you. The words that come out of their mouth maybe don't match up the feeling. And then sometimes they do, right? And then you're like, all right, I know that person's going to be successful doing X, Y, and Z because of how they feel. I can just feel it the way they talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important thing. Today we were on that call, and we're talking about the kind of people we want to work with. And I think the beauty of choosing a product you can believe in, choosing a product that provides real value, is you talk a certain way and you feel a certain way, but it also is what attracts a certain kind of person, by using the words, the language, and it attracts the right kind of person. And I think that, as you look at these solar guys that are going from selling solar to going and selling IULs, I mean, there's a reason why that industry, cash value life insurance has the name that it has. Well, solar has reaped that kind of reputation over the years. Mm-hmm. I mean, people kind of know, like, oh, you sell solar. It's like, oh, you're a solar bro, And it's unfortunate because, like I say, I know a lot of really good dudes that sell that, but the industry itself has gained this reputation. And I think that's because of the kind of people that it's attracted. And I think the reason that happened was because they were selling the money first. Hey, come here, you can make X amount of money. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, a customer can not have to pay an electricity bill. It was the thing that mattered last was the customer. Or if you can actually represent something you believe in first, what we're doing is right. We believe in what we're doing. We take care of the customer first. It's about people first. And then how much you make is secondary. Listen, it's important to have financial success, right? I'm not trying to, I'm never trying to diminish the value of having financial success. Our world works on finances today. There's nothing special about being broke. It doesn't make you better from being unsuccessful financially, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to be successful financially, but more importantly is the value and service you provide to your community, right? And that comes by doing something you believe in.
It is. That's what makes Windows special. And I've only been doing this now since 2014, so almost it'll be 11 years this year. But in the process of being involved for 11 years, I've met a lot of guys that have been involved for 25, 30, 35, and 40 years in all of the incredible installers that we work with. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about these cycles in the market. In fiber, flash in the pan. Mm-hmm. These things like alarms and pest control, they've been around a long time. And they're seasonal a lot of the times. I know at least pest control is because in the summer in Utah where we're from, the scorpions and the crickets and the cockroaches and the spiders, they all come out. Mm-hmm. But in the winter, they all disappear.
Yeah.
And then you got a pest control guy show up at your door in the winter and there's no pain. Mm-hmm. And you're not adding a ton of value at that time in their life. And they're like, not interested.
Yep.
Alarms in Utah, probably not, because it's like one of the safest places on the planet, statistically. Mm-hmm. Solar, there's also seasons associated with solar just based off of the weather and where you're at. But Windows, no matter where you are, what kind of climate, north, south, east, west, desert landscape or tropical landscape, they're always bringing value.
Yep.
Every single time. And one of the reasons are, and this is maybe a misconception or just like a lack of education, is the reason that is because contractors follow the same model everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, Canada, Russia, China, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
It may be slight variations, but contractors typically they're trying to make money on this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the areas that most consumers are uneducated is in windows.
Yep.
And so they've gotten into this pattern of, this is one area that I know I can cut a little bit of cost,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to get a couple of estimates, and I'm going to take the estimate that gives me a couple of different things. I need those windows to show up on time, but I also want to save as much money as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I get windows that will show up that I can get for the cheapest?
Yep.
That will reach the minimum requirements based off of today's standards for building code.
Yep.
And energy ratings. And typically you end up with a really crappy window.
Yeah.
Because those energy ratings aren't all that stringent. So in every single market across the United States, no matter if it was built yesterday or 20 years ago, they've been following that model forever.
Yep. Put the cheapest window possible. Increase their profit margin.
So unless that changes,
Mm-hmm.
this opportunity in replacement windows and the value from day one, as soon as somebody moves in their house, if it's less than $1 million house, typically they're following that same model.
Yep.
And they need replacement windows, a better quality than the got it installed in their house from day one.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't quite sink in for, 5, 10, 15 years.
Well, and the reason why is a lot of people that are, moving into a home, they haven't stayed there. They haven't lived there. They don't know, they haven't been in that room where the sun's coming in beating on them all day and it's super hot, or, when it's cold. They haven't lived in that room, and contractors know that. They know they haven't lived there. It's the last thing somebody's thinking about when they're trying to buy a house, because they haven't actually lived there. They haven't spent time there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really easy place to cut corners.
And even if they have, because after the first year, they got a pretty good idea these windows suck.
Yeah.
Like, I know that thing's locked, but how in the hell is all this dust getting in here on the windowsill?
Mm-hmm.
And how is there so much heat coming through these windows? So we have replaced windows in homes that were 1 year old. They were less than 1 year old because they got done. And the guy had just had replacement windows done in his previous house. And he's like, these things are junk. How quick can I get these things out and new, better windows in? But typically the reason it is, in my opinion, that people don't do the replacement windows for 5, 10, or 15 years is we focus on a pretty specific demographic.
Yeah.
And most of the time, until it gets really uncomfortable and until things start to wear out in other areas of the home, they're just not thinking about doing replacement windows and invest in something like that, because it's a big investment.
It is.
It's a big investment.
It's also not convenient to have to go, for the most part, doing it in a traditional route. I mean, it's not convenient as it could be for most people. They got to find a contractor. They got to go through a lot of different places versus a model like ours, where somebody shows up and say, hey, we'll make it convenient for you. We can fix it today. We'll get it done fairly soon.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to think about it. You're only going to know we're here because you got new windows,
Yeah, I think for some of those reasons that we just talked about is the reason why replacement windows is the next wave for home services, for door-to-door, for business opportunities. And
I would say, rather than wave, I would say best kept secret, honestly.
yeah, well, I think it's a wave because it's been such a best kept secret because of these things like, the IULs and the fiber and the solar, and these guys are going out and making great money on that, and it's just like bouncing from one thing to the next.
Yep.
And people will always continue to do that.
Yeah.
But the best kept secret in home services and in door-to-door is replacement windows, because it's true value. And there's always going to be these schmucks that will continue to bounce from one thing to the next that's going to pay them the most.
Yep.
That the value, the fulfillment, the purpose in life is like, that's never even crossed our mind.
So what makes it the best kept secret? It's a great product, great value, and there's big money in it, right?
Yeah.
And most people don't know that.
And there's a bunch of other things that if you compare it side by side, you can also get paid quick.
Mm-hmm.
You can get paid, depending on the company you're at, you can get paid in a couple of different ways also.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many reasons why it's the best kept secret. And over the next 10 years, I know JKR Windows got some big plans. We want to be the biggest in the world in replacement windows.
You got one of those goals on your shirt.
We do. Constantly talking about it, manifesting it, attracting all of the great people into the business.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be a lot of other great people that get attracted into this business because it's not just happening in Utah and in the mountain states where we're at. It's happening all over the country.
Yep.
And I'm sure in other parts of the world. Because we're not the only ones promoting it on social media and through podcasts.
Right.
And in our blogs and in our daily lives. We've just seen over the past couple of years since me and you've been talking about it, like hundreds and hundreds of people's lives have been impacted by replacement windows.
Yep. It's awesome.
So it's exciting. It's a cool opportunity. We're adding a ton of value. And we started the conversation with talking about these guys going out and selling indexed universal life insurance, fiber, and there's still a bunch of people selling solar as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to you the other day about they may be overlooking some things because they're maybe a little naive or they're just overlooking them because of the money right now. But they're still great people.
Yeah.
They were still raised with great values, and they're morally and ethically aligned with JKR Windows. We just haven't had the opportunity to talk to them, to expose them to Windows yet. Because one of the things we've talked about is there's also a bunch of people out there that even if they had been exposed to JKR Windows and adding a ton of value and being proud of what you do, it doesn't really matter still.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're just going to chase the money.
Just like, yep, that's just people.
Yep.
But, I think that those people that the values do matter, the character matters, what they're doing for the consumer matters. Yeah, if they only knew, right? And that's why it's important to share the message, and hopefully people listening right now start talking, telling somebody, sending this to somebody that they know that maybe sells solar, maybe thinking about going to sell IULs, maybe going to sell pest control for the summer or whatever it may be. They know they're a good person. They know they got some leadership skills. They know they got some character traits that they're a good person and they work hard and they have, an incredible amount of ambition and motivation and desire to do something special with their lives. But at the end of the day, they want to do something they're proud of. They want to be a part of something they're proud of and something they can believe in. And so hopefully those, anybody listening that knows somebody like that will send this over to them.
How do you think the window industry changes over the next 10 years?
That's interesting, dude, because I think there's kind of two sides to that. One side is you see this incredible push for giant private equity companies and VC firms that are trying to do it through acquisition, which is a hard thing to do. You've watched locally, we've seen companies like Quick Quack try to do that with the car wash model, and they grow real fast, but they also come down real quick. And so I think part of the industry is going to go that way through acquisitions. And then also I think we're on the forefront of watching people starting to really see the value and the benefit and the opportunity with Windows. And I think we're going to continue to attract a large amount of people. I think we're going to continue to be the leader in the industry. And that's why, the more and more we talk about it and our goals and what we want to accomplish in the future, I think it's exciting to think what will happen in 10 years. But I imagine, we talked about alarms or security systems. A lot of people sold security. I think one of the things that like Vivint did differently is they pivoted from alarm systems to smart home and really became almost synonymous with home security systems. And it was like, oh, you have Vivint, but it was really, oh, I have a smart home system, right? Same thing Google did with internet search. Like if you search something, you might not be using Google. You might be using Safari, but you're still Googling something. And so, I think that in door-to-door, it's going to continue to be this thing where it's like people are going to know about the opportunity so much and so broad because of the value and benefit of things we've talked about here today. It's going to be – I'm excited, dude. I'm excited to see what happens over the next 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to grow tenfold. I think faster the next 10 years than it has the previous 30, no doubt.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. Like some of these installers, with all of the ups and downs in the market and the elections and the economy, the replacement window industry has always stayed consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what happens. People are either buying or they're selling.
Yep.
Or they're staying or they're going. But there's always going to be a need for home improvements.
Yeah.
And then there's companies like ours that really offer true value, and we're out there educating customers, and we're getting in front of a lot of people. So I think that's one of the reasons why it continues to grow, just because there's more people out there talking about it than ever before in the history of replacement windows. And we want to be the innovators in this industry when it comes to the technology and the business opportunity for people to come in. And with our business model, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to continue to evolve and adapt. So the opportunity to come work for a company, in my mind, is going to be at JKR Windows because of the emphasis that we put on the business and the opportunity, and not just about making money in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people excited about make some money like a solar blitz summer type of thing. Mm-hmm. No, this is a career.
Yeah.
This is a career opportunity that we're trying to create for people.
Yep.
And as that starts to become more mainstream, we even get more eyes on this thing.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just like, your dad's telling you to go get a real job.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got an opportunity to make more money than he does,
relatively
quick, and you're offering real value. It starts to become mainstream, that this is not just like a summer thing anymore.
Right. Or nor is it just a door-to-door sales thing. Yeah, you do for a few months and in between school or until you find out what your actual career is. But it's something you can go build something you're proud of. Not just, there's a saying, I was talking to someone the other day, says, they said, yeah, the highest paid career is in sales. And I said, I disagree. I think the highest paid career is in sales leadership, right? A lot of people get great at sales, but there's a cap based on how many hours you have in a day, how many customers you can probably sit in front of in any given amount of time. But with sales leadership, it's unlimited, because your ability to influence and empower a large group of people is really only limited by your ability to grow your leadership skills. And, if you got one person, they got 24 hours in a day. But how does one person compete with another person? Well, they go get 10 people. Now they got 240 hours in a day. How does a person with 24 compete with someone with 240? They just don't long term. They might short term, but not long term. And so the ability to grow in sales leadership and build something they're proud of, I think that career aspect, that's where people are going to start realizing, like, oh my gosh, I can really do something I'm proud of. I can really do something that lasts, where I'm providing this incredible product and service for my customers. They're happy. We've got customers that we've been doing service on for a lot of years, and they love me, and they're sending referrals all the time, but also make an impact in people's lives by taking somebody who used to work at a grocery store or somebody who used to sell solar, right? We got a young guy right now who used to sell solar and came in and has just been killing it. I think he's averaged $70,000 a month since he got here, and he had a little bit of experience in sales. But then there's other people that come in and they have no experience and they're making more money than they've ever made. And that was their first 60, 90, 120 days. And now they're going, what do I do with all this money, And it's going, well, it's because they're good people, and they didn't come here just for the money. They came here because they believed in what they were doing. The money was a byproduct, and now they realize, man, I could go teach other people to go do this and really do something I'm proud of.
Yep. Create some freedom for yourself instead of having to start over every day like in most other sales opportunities.
Almost all sales organizations, that's how it works. You're going to go make a sale, and they'll brag about it. Oh, well, you can make X amount of commissions here. Well, that's great, but then it's still just you. And then what do you got to do next week? Oh, you got to do the same thing. What about next year? Oh, well, you got to do the same thing. Oh, what about the year after that? Oh, well, you got to do the same thing. Oh, so really, you're just going to wake up unemployed every single day? It's just
that doesn't sound all that exciting to me.
It's not a career. It's not. So I think that's what separates JKR from everybody else, including even in this industry, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, but from day one, I think I've told you so many times, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I wanted to be different. I didn't want this to be a summer sales thing where somebody came in here that I was excited to recruit and their dad talked them out of doing it because it wasn't a real opportunity. It wasn't a real career.
Yep.
I want this to be a real career.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working towards, is building this as a career opportunity, long-term opportunity where somebody can come in here and come from making big-time money somewhere else and see an opportunity to come build a business with inside of JKR Windows that's going to support their wife and kids and their lifestyle and help create freedom forever.
Yep. And you got something good. We were I know next week we've got a guest on who built a very, very large solar company, one of the biggest, and is here with us now. And that's because he understands what he can accomplish here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or he sees it, he understands it, he gets it. I think we're going to continue to have more and more of that, because we're not only just out there marketing windows, which we know are good for the consumer, but we also, and this is a testament of you, been willing to do things different. And I think as you said that, you said, I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like or how I was going to do it. I think that's the important thing is, if you're going to accomplish something, it's not necessarily about how am I going to do it, but what am I trying to accomplish and why am I trying to accomplish it? The how I'm going to do it, we'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. If you really know why you're trying to accomplish something, you're going to attract the right kind of people to help you accomplish that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening right now, man. It's exciting.
It is. It's coming together. We keep attracting more and more like this guy that we're going to have on next week. I'm excited to meet with him. So now I wanted to shift gears a little bit, because as we're talking about this guy, the model of his business and in solar and a lot of other industries is like a sales and then fulfillment and installs is separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them have meshed them together, and then they bring installs in-house. Why do you think that happens, and what do you think are the pros and cons of those type of structures? Because it's starting to happen in Windows too.
Yeah, I think what's happened in solar, it's interesting. If you look at solar, there's a couple of challenges. One of them we've talked about, which is created this solar bro culture through money first.
Mm-hmm.
But another challenge, and the reason why I think we're seeing the industry get crushed, and some of these guys who are really good and they were great guys, but they're still looking for something different, is because a lot of these big install companies are going out of business. And the reason that's happening is because they've outsourced the install. And as they've outsourced the install, you run into a lot of issues, quality, being able to make sure you have enough of the, whether it's solar panels or batteries, and then you have the trades as well. Do I have the right amount of electricians? You have a permitting process. You've got this complicated process. And then they're always trying to drive down the cost of the installation and then drive up the cost of commissions and compete on the amount of money because they put themselves in that situation.
Yeah.
Right. So what's happened is you've had a very important part of the process have to cut because they're trying to feed this beast that they built of let's pay these guys the most amount of money possible. And now they're competing on who can pay the most by paying the install crews the least. So they had to keep them separate to separate the risk. And then one takes away from the other. And they have these big companies that are folding. And now these guys who are waiting on commissions, they're not getting them because the deals didn't get installed, and it's created all these other problems in the industry. But really, it was from the foundation, and so it's hard for these companies to change because of the way they built it. So they built it like that from the beginning, and maybe not knowing, right? Some of them I think knew, but they didn't know this is where it was going to end up. And then there was other companies knowing that that's what was going to happen, but that's the only way they could compete is by maybe they can cut costs a little bit more. And, in solar, it's called red line. Mm-hmm. And pest control, you've seen the same thing. Hey, how can they offer the littlest amount of value but pay their agents or pay their reps the most amount of commissions? And there's all kind of things that they do to be more competitive for the reps, because you see it in pest control too. All these guys driving these exotic cars, and this is what it's about and all that kind of stuff. But how often do you see a pest control guy really talk about the value they're providing to the customer?
Never.
It's always what kind of car they're driving, how big their house is. Never about their product, because killing bugs ain't sexy, I guess, And so you have these models that are built on this thing, where in a model like ours, where we genuinely want to put the customer first, but we also want them to have a great experience and have a great install. We want to pay the installers good, so they want to work with us. And when a customer has a great experience, they love the install, they love the turnout, they love the product, then they talk about us. And then the reps are excited because they have low cancellation rates, and then customers are calling them, telling them how great it was. So you're actually feeding this thing that builds it long term. And instead of having a short-term process that we're thinking about, how can we just pay the reps the most amount of money and then pay the installers the least amount so we have the money to pay the reps, It's like, hey, how can we accomplish doing something we're really proud of doing? And I think this guy we're going to have on next week, I'm sure he'll talk about this because this is a big thing he's noticed with what we're doing that is different than even most window companies, where we believe in making sure that all sides of the business are taken care of so that everybody feels great about what we're doing. And it's less about the money and more about the people, whether it's the installers, the sales reps, the customers, anybody involved, right? You always say, we're a people development company. We just happen to sell windows.
Yep, all the way to our admin and our operations staff.
Yep.
It's a cultural thing. And that's one of the reasons why why the solar thing and all these other things weren't all that attractive to me. Because we're trying to attract a certain quality of person. Mm-hmm. There are certain things that are important to me that are important to them also. Our morals and ethics and our values align. Mm-hmm. And that's how we've come up with these philosophies and this, the catchphrase, which it's become now. We're a people development company. We just happen to sell windows. Mm-hmm. And we embody it. We eat, sleep, and breathe it. It shows up in every area of the business and every one of our processes and every one of our meetings. It's not just something we say.
Right.
There are other companies that they say it, and we hear it often mm-hmm. because we're attracting people from these other industries.
Yep.
Like, you guys say it and do it. Most other places just say it as a facade to attract people and to paint the picture like it's this cool thing to be a part of.
Yep.
But then they don't live it, and it's very obvious.
Yep.
That's the last thing we ever want to give somebody an impression of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really cool to hear people who we've hired on, right, for our operations and fulfillment team. They've watched the podcast, they've watched the social media, they've heard us say things like this. But then they come in, they see the meetings, they hear people talking about what books they're reading, or today they were out there doing push-ups and jumping jacks, and taking a quick break, and everybody's doing pull-ups, push-ups, and sit-ups. And that's what they're doing on their break. And then, a month or 2 months or 3 months later, this new person who came in and said that that's what they're excited about. And then we're in a meeting and they're talking about what book they've read and how they're excited about getting better. And that when they joined this culture, it was actually something that was real for them. And it wasn't not only what excited them, but now they're a part of it. And they feel great about getting better, developing themselves, becoming better. We've watched people that came in and made personal life changes that nobody asked them to make. They chose to get better in their personal life because of the environment they had here at work, which is special, right?
Yep.
When somebody gets better in their personal life because of the influence that we've been able to have on them in their professional life, that's to me when there's some big impact made. And people are talking about, how their kids are reading books and this is, they're corporate employees, that it's not a requirement for them. It's just something that is part of our culture, and they feel good about it. Yeah, it's exciting, dude.
Yeah, we're making an impact, living by example. Each one of these other people start to live by example in their own life. That's the cool part of business. And as a parent, as a leader, you get to influence people.
Yep.
You get to either influence positively or negatively. In sales, in business, in life, in school, it's all universal.
That's why just being a person who really shows up every day, I think like leader and servant kind of going hand in hand. It's like, are you really there to serve somebody and help them get better in life? Or are you just excited about what you can get out of it? And I think in most of these sales orgs, like we just talked about that product, is they're most excited about what they can get from it, not really how many lives they can touch or how many people they can impact through their example.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. I think you even said it recently. How does it go? You help enough people get what they want,
you'll get everything you want.
And you'll get everything you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's pretty cool. Well, as we wrap up here, the message for the day is, are you excited about what you're doing? Are you proud of what you're doing? Can you go home and tell your mama about something that you're selling and truly get excited about it and be able to be transparent?
Yep.
Or are you one of those guys that really doesn't matter and you're just in it for the money?
Mm-hmm.
So just some self-reflection. I'll leave you with that question right there. Thank you for checking in on another episode of Just Real Quick. Every week We'll keep coming back with more. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the podcast. If you can think of somebody that would benefit from this message, copy and paste the link, send it to them. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. What are the other ones? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Is that still a thing? iHeartRadio? That might be one. Send it to somebody who you think could hear this or could benefit from this message. And check back with us next week on another episode of Just Real Quick. Later on.